What's good, my lovely peoples? It's your main man Solace here, the humble wise one. Today I want to do this video discussing slavery in the Bible. Because the Bible writes about slavery as if it's okay. And this disturbs a lot of people. And it's a deep thing that y'all have to grasp. So I want to discuss this topic. In the Bible, I want to read a few verses that discuss slavery and break them down for y'all so that y'all can get a complete understanding. Now, I know a lot of y'all will say, why do you care if you're not a Christian? Well, it doesn't matter. There's people that are Christians. There are people that are Kemetic followers, Muslims, all different types of people. Now, being as though I understand all the texts, because they all have the base foundation of understanding of the life. So they all derive from the understandings of the life, and then it's just told in its own unique way. So if you told me to explain the life and the creation of life and how life works, it wouldn't be exactly like the Bible, but if you put them side to side, it would be similar, because life is life. So whoever's telling life and they have full understanding of it is gonna sound however it sounds, but this is why all the texts have so many similarities. They have different authors, but those who are writing are those who have the information that are going into the books. It comes from the life and their understandings of the life. Now, I learn from the life, but the life don't speak. It's all observation and feeling. So when you're learning that way, you have to speak it in your own words. The life don't speak like that. So it's a deep thing you have to grasp. But perspective is everything, and this is what's lost. Now, let's get into the video. Now, let's discuss slavery in the Bible. Because technically, according to the Bible, slavery is okay with God. This is what a lot of people believe when they see this. And it's a deep thing I want y'all to grasp. The first thing you have to grasp is the Bible, nor is God saying anything to you. So when you're reading the book ain't say that, and neither did God. So you have to grasp that. The book don't have a brain and a mouth and hands. The book didn't write itself. So you have to grasp. God didn't speak of himself. Others are doing this. So you have to grasp. So there should only be one question you have. Who wrote the book? Because whoever wrote the book is responsible for whatever misconceptions you have in the life. Not God or the book, but the person that wrote the book about God. This is who you should have the problem with. Now, you can't find out who wrote the book. But in today's times, any book you read, you want to know who was the author. So you could know if the book is worth reading. Because everybody ain't on a level. Spirit-wise, they may be on a level with knowledge, but their spirit may be out of whack. So that ain't going to do you any good. So this is why it's important to know whose book you're reading. See, if you was reading my book, you wouldn't say the book said, you would say Solace said. And it's the same for the Bible, but you don't know who wrote it. So this is where it gets crazy and you start saying the book said, and the book didn't say nothing. It's a deep thing you have to grasp. It's all about perspective. Now, when you read this book, being as though you don't know who the author is, there's no need for you to get emotionally invested. If you don't like the things that's said in the book and you can't understand what's being said, then you move to something that you can understand. But it all boils down to you having truth and understanding of the life on your own, so that when you read the text, you won't get lost. But if you don't have no understanding or no base foundation of knowledge, then anything you read gonna have discrepancies in it to you, because you don't have a perspective to read it from. So it's a deep thing you have to grasp. Now let's go into the first verse in the Bible. Well, I'm not going to discuss every verse. I don't have that kind of time. But the first verse I want to discuss that speaks on slavery in the Bible is Exodus 21, verse 20. Now, I'm going to read from the King James Bible. You can read from any Bible you want. They're all the same. Words are a little different, but they're all the same. Now, Exodus 21, verse 20 says, "And if a man beats his male or female servant with a rod, so that he dies under his hand, he shall surely be punished." Meaning the master. If a master beats his slave and he dies, then the master has to be punished. But if he remains alive a day or two, he shall not be punished, for he is his property. So it's basically saying if a master beats his slave and the slave dies, the master has to be punished. But if the slave does not die, then the master's good to go because it's his property and he can do whatever he wants with it. He just can't kill it. So it's a deep thing you have to grasp. Now, a lot of people get confused and they say, oh, God must say that slavery is okay. And that's not what that's saying. What that is saying is that's the laws of the land. So y'all have to grasp, it's a simple thing. It's not saying that God is saying that this is a just thing. It's basically breaking down the laws of those places it was speaking of in the Bible, in the laws of those lands. So you have to grasp, there's places in the world now that have harsh work laws like that, where you could beat your worker and do whatever you want to them. Just don't kill them. Places in Colombia, a lot of the poor countries, like Sierra Leone, you see they chop their goddamn hand off. They just don't kill them. Well, they kill them sometime, but you get my point. So it's all depending on the place. Now, we live in America, so we get lost and we pampered and babied. So you don't understand when you reading that. You like, why would God say that's okay? And God is not saying that. The book is basically telling you the laws that the men lived by in their lands in those times. And it's not too different from now. Because in certain parts of the world, you have slaves, which are nothing more than workers. You're a slave. Everybody's a slave. That's a worker or a laborer. They're the same word. Slave, worker, laborer. It's all the same. Some people have workers or laborers that have no rights. They completely own them. In those times. They have it like that now in certain places. But y'all just have to grasp. God is not saying that a man should have slaves and he could beat his slave, and as long as the slave don't die, then the master's good. That's not what the book is saying. The book is not saying that God said that's okay. The book is just telling you the laws of the land in those days, in those times. The same way we have laws of our land in these days and these times. And every country has their laws in their land. Fortunate for you, you live in America. You go somewhere else, you might be getting your ass beat by your own boss. And it's legal on the land as long as he doesn't kill you. We have worse laws in certain places today than the laws in the Bible. So if you read that in the Bible and you said, oh, that's horrible. A master could beat his slave and as long as he don't die, the master's good to go. That's horrible. But you fail to realize it's places overseas now that have worse laws than that in regards to labor and work. So it's a deep thing you have to grasp. You can't get so lost and emotionally invested in whatever you believe in to where you begin to slander other things, because then you make a fool of yourself, because that's what's trending now. If you're a Muslim, then whatever the Bible says is a lie. If you're a Christian, whatever the Quran says is a lie. If you're a Kemetic follower, whatever everything says is a lie. So you have to grasp, nothing is a lie except for the spirit that is reading the thing. So if you're confused within your intellect, then you're going to read it and receive it that way. This is why spirits must be adjusted when acquiring knowledge. Like I always say, you got to be at peace, or you're not going to grasp anything. Now, if you go back and read that text in the Bible, Exodus 21:20, you'll clearly see that I'm right. It's not saying that God said that's right. It is just telling you the laws of the land. Simple. Let's go to another one. You have Ephesians chapter 6, verse 5. And it basically says in a nutshell that slaves need to obey their masters with deep respect and fear and serve them the same way you would do Christ. So basically the book is telling you, serve your master. If you're a worker or a slave, serve your master the same way you would serve Christ. But you have to grasp the book. Let me go to that chapter. The book is not telling you to worship your master like Jesus. I'm trying to find the page. It's not telling you to worship your master like Jesus. It is telling you the laws of the land and what you got to do. If you worship Christ and you do it in fear for nothing, then you have to worship whoever your boss is because you're working on his property and you belong to him by your own consent, usually. And you could be killed in all types of things for different things. So it's just telling you the laws of the land. Let me break it down to y'all. Ephesians 6:5. It says, bondservants, be obedient to those who are your masters, according to the flesh, with fear and trembling and sincerity of heart, as to Christ. Basically telling you, obey your masters in flesh the same way you're supposed to obey Christ in spirit, because the motherfuckers will kill your flesh on this life. So don't get lost thinking, oh, you got to always keep in mind, you in the flesh, everybody's lost in the flesh. And a nigga's going to do whatever he want to you. There's nothing in the life watching over you saying, you can't do that. So you grasp, we can all do whatever we want to each other. So it's just telling you how to move, basically giving you jewels for yourself. Yeah, you might want to do this, you might want to do that. Let me read before chapter 6:5 so you can truly grasp. I've just read Ephesians chapter 6, verse 5. But I'm going to read Ephesians chapter 6, verse 1 through 5. So you can see that it's a personal jewel. It truly doesn't have nothing to do with the laws of the land or the laws of God. It is just basically telling you, like your parent would tell you, keep in mind your surroundings when you out in this world, because anything could happen to you. It's not like I'm here with you. So you watch yourself when you out here. And it's basically giving you a jewel like that. But we don't read the book in no perspective. But let me read it to you. Ephesians chapter 6, verse 1, straight down through 5. I'm going to read it. Verse 1 says, children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right. Honor your father and mother, which is the first commandment with promise, that it may be well with you and you may live long on the earth. Now we think that means obey your mother and father and God will bless you with long life. And that's not what it's saying. It's basically saying you live in this life. You might want to obey your parents, being as though they're bigger and stronger than you and they could kill you. So obey your parents so that it be well with you. Or if you don't listen to your parents, then you get your ass whooped. And in them whipping your ass one day, you might die. So it's basically telling you real life. Obey your parents. They brought you in this world. And before you get big and grown, you might not make it to that if you disrespecting them too much. Because people got flesh. And the flesh has pride. And all types of things. Even if it's your parents. So you have to grasp. If you tell your parent, fuck you, suck my dick, 9 times out of 10, you gonna get the ass whooping of your life. So you have to grasp. It don't matter if those is your parents. Once you delve into disrespect, it's gonna be bad for you. And if it's disrespect towards your parents, you already know what they gonna do to you. Because parents ain't gonna play with you. like the rest of the world. The rest of the world don't know how tough you are, but your parents know. They're going to beat your ass. And it's deep because it gives the parents a dual simula. If you go to the verse under it, it says, basically it says, children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right. Honor your father and mother, which is the first commandment, with promise that it may be well with you and you may live long on earth. And you, fathers, do not provoke your children to wrath, but bring them up in the training and admonition of the Lord. It's basically telling the fathers, don't be abusing your kids and filling them up with hate towards you, because when they grow up, they might kill your ass. So it's just giving jewels on both ends of the stick. Children, honor your parents because they might kill you before you're able to defend yourself. And the same to you, parents. Have remorse for your children and watch how you treat them because they may grow up and take you out. So it's just giving you jewels. Then when it gets to 5, it says bond servants, slaves. Be obedient to those who are your masters according to the flesh, with fear and trembling, in sincerity of heart, as you would to Christ. Basically saying, if they're your boss or your master, then they got status over you. And you might want to obey what they say when you on their time, because they looking at you as beneath them and you know what could happen to you. So it's just giving you jewels on how to watch yourself in this life. You can't get lost in thinking, oh, God's going to save me. The life works how it works, and it's going to move in its cycle, but you got to be responsible for yourself here. In the meanwhile, so it's a deep thing. Now, all of this is bigger than God and devil, but people don't understand. They get lost in words and they get emotionally invested, and then the whole understandings of things become clouded when they read things like this. And they think everything is coming from God. They fail to realize a man wrote this. He wrote this the best way he could in explaining the life. So you know the book is about this existence we live, life. It starts off in the beginnings. So the book is about life. So whoever wrote it is breaking down life to you. Now we know life don't talk. So he's explaining it in his words, because what words are he gonna use? So you have to grasp, it's a simple thing. Whoever wrote the book, they had divine understanding of the life. Same way I do. This is why I understand what they writing. Has nothing to do with the book. You're not gonna understand the book until you understand life. Then you can grasp like, oh, okay, I know we got laws like that today where men get beat up by their bosses and masters. See, it's the words. Y'all don't think y'all slaves now. Back in the day, they didn't call it workers and laborers. We call ourselves workers, laborers, and employee. Back in the day, it was called the slave and other slave terms, but it was the same thing. Slaves was paid. Some slaves wasn't. It all depends. But it's a deep thing y'all have to grasp. Now, I want to get into 2 chapters in the Bible that bring people great confusion. And it's in regards to the end of days. Now, the first one is Matthew 24:22. And this is basically when one of the prophets came up to Jesus on the Mount Olives and basically asked him, what's up with the end of days? He wanted to know the knowledge on the end of days and when it was going to happen and so on and so forth. Excuse me. And then Jesus explains to him basically what he meant when he said end of days. I broke that down in a prior video. But basically when you get to 24, Matthew 24, verse 22, people have confusion on that verse. So I want to break that down to y'all right quick. Now in Matthew 24 verse 22 it says, and unless those days were shortened, no flesh would be saved. But for the elect's sake, those days will be shortened. People don't understand what that means. And it's simple. He's speaking of the tribulations of those times are going to be so horrible. So people grasp that. Okay, Jesus is speaking of the end of days and how horrible things are going to be. And then he says, and unless those days were shortened, no flesh would be saved. But for the elect's sake, those days will be shortened. Basically, what it's saying is this. If I tell you I'm going to shorten your days, then you know what I'm saying. I'm threatening you that I'm going to kill your ass. So you have to grasp, unless those days were shortened. Unless you die before the end times, you good to go. But if you still alive when the end times come, it's going to be so bad that ain't nobody going to survive through it. That's how bad it's going to be. So if you happen to die before that times, lucky for you. That's why you say, but for the elect's sake, those days will be shortened. Meaning those that are horrible, they will go through the tribulation and it will be horrible and nobody will make it. No flesh shall be saved. But there's going to be a certain few that die before the tribulation. And they won't have to endure that horribleness. So it's basically just saying, those that die before bad times, lucky for them. Those that's around for it, whoo, it's going to be bad. And then it goes on to break down how if a woman is pregnant with child during these times, woe for her. So it's basically just telling you how horrible the times is, and if you're going to be pregnant at that time, it's going to be horrible for you. And if you this, that at that time, it's going to be bad for you. If you're alive, it's basically saying if you're alive during the tribulations, it's going to be horrible and you're going to die. But it's going to be horrible. So horrible that nobody's going to survive it. No flesh shall be saved. But there will be a few elect in the earth that will die before this time. And lucky for them that they do. Because it's going to be bad. So basically that's what the book is saying. But it's speaking of events that happened already. So you have to grasp. It is speaking of the time between 1 BC and 1 AD. Because we know time is not kept like that. You don't get to New Year's Eve, 1 BC, and then the next year it's 1 AD. It doesn't work like that. Time doesn't go backwards then forward. It does. So you got to grasp. There was a gap in time. When 1 BC and then 1 AD came, there was a gap between there and then 1 AD is when men begin to start keeping track of time again. This is why it started over with 1 AD. So you have to grasp. Jesus was speaking of the horrible events that took place in between that gap of time, where men were completely in darkness, and then they had to keep track of time again. So basically, that's all that was speaking of. But when it said the days will be shortened, it was basically saying those that are alive during tribulations, it's going to be bad. Those that die before it, you're lucky. You're the elect. You don't have to go through that crazy shit. Now, there's one more verse in the Bible that I want to discuss, and it's Revelations chapter 12, verse 12. And people get confused on this. So I want to break this down. Now, in Revelations chapter 12, verse 12, it says, "Therefore rejoice, O heavens, and you who dwell in them." Grasp that. "Therefore rejoice, O heavens, and you who dwell in the heavens. But woe to them that inhabit the earth and the sea. For the devil has come down to you having great wrath, because he knows he has but a short time." And people don't grasp what that means. And they have to understand, flesh and spirit is like Satan and God. So when it speaks of devil, it is speaking of the flesh and the desires and morality of the flesh. Men do horrible things when they in the flesh. Y'all gotta grasp. This is why it says he has great wrath, for he knows he has a short time. Do you see anybody's body lasting long? So you have to grasp. Men live in this body and they try to do all the stupid, dumb things they can before they die. You know how we do. So it's a deep thing. That's what it's breaking down. But you have to have understanding of spirit and body to truly grasp God and devil. Whenever you hear spirit, light, this is speaking of the God aspect of yourself, what you truly are. And when you hear body and devil and Satan, this is speaking of the body, the physical darkness that the flame of the light is trapped in, the spirit. The spirit, light, flame, this is what that's trapped in, the darkness, which is the body, the Satan, the devil. And it has its desires. And it's a deep thing you have to grasp. So when it says that, it's basically explaining that. Now, if you read a little bit more down, it says, now when the dragon saw that he had been cast to the earth, he persecuted the woman who gave birth to the male child. So through the male is how you reproduce, because the spirit is the sperm. Everybody came from sperm, meaning everybody was a sperm cell before they got an egg and developed into this life. So it doesn't matter if you're a woman or a man. You started off in your daddy's body or his balls or wherever you think the sperm came from. That's where you started as a sperm cell within him. Got you an egg, developed over into this life. That's why it says the woman gave birth to a male child. So it says, now when the dragon saw that he had been cast to the earth, he persecuted the woman who gave birth to the male child. But the woman was given 2 wings of a great eagle, that she might fly into the wilderness to her place, where she is nourished for a time, and a times and a half a time, from the presence of the serpent, which is the devil or the dragon. So the serpent spewed water out of his mouth like a flood after the woman, that he might cause her to be carried away by the flood. So it's just bringing you back to Noah's times, because it's speaking about the life. Like how I broke it down to y'all, light and darkness, is speaking to you in those terms. The physical is the Satan, and the spirit within all physical things is of God. So it's basically telling it to you in those terms, and it's bringing you back to the beginnings. First, the dragon or the devil spewed out water. You have to remember, this world, all worlds are bodies. So you was a sperm cell within your father. Then you was a zygote, fetus, etc., within your mother. Then you was born to be the same thing as them. So you live within this solar system or this world, and it's someone's body. So this is why it's speaking in that way. The woman is representing the spirit, trying to escape the physical bodies, because all worlds are bodies, whether it's your body or whatever. So it's speaking in that sense, but it's breaking it down to you using Noah in the beginning, saying that was the first battle. So it's a simple but deep thing people have to grasp. Flesh and spirit is basically nothing more than Satan and God. The flesh is Satan. The spirit is of God. This is why in Genesis 1 it said, the earth was formless and void, and darkness covered the face of the deeps, and the spirit of God covered the face of the waters. This is why it says spirit of God. Because the light within you, the spirit, the things I've been breaking down to y'all, this is of the life. The light trapped in the darkness. But the whole existence, it's a deep thing y'all have to grasp. But when y'all read this book and you're a Christian or whatever you may be, you read the book, you got to read it with some sort of perspective. You can't be lost in God and devil, because you know God didn't write the book. You can say any dumb thing you want. No, God gave the prophets the word, but you know God didn't give nobody nothing. Men wrote this. They said that. I could tell y'all right now, God give me the knowledge I have, But you'll say, shut up, Solace. So this is my point. You can't be stupid just because the book is older than you. Now you lost. Like, no way. So you gotta get real with yourself. Certain people know how to learn from the life. I guess all throughout the life, there's certain people who have a certain intellect, such as myself, that can learn directly from the life, just from seeing and feeling, and it relate back to my brain like words, but there's no sound. But it's just like if you watch a movie or you go to the zoo or whatever you do and you see. It's no words, but you grasp what you see. You know what you seen. If you seen the elephant walk down your block, you know what you seen. Now, how you relay that story to the next person is on you. So if we both standing there watching the elephant go by, you'll go home and tell your wife how you seen that, and I'll go home and tell my wife how I seen it. But it don't necessarily mean we gonna both say the exact same words to describe the same thing. But both wives will grasp that we seen the elephant walk down the street. So that's how this book, the Quran, and all these other books are. It's just the author explaining the life. And people getting lost in the God and all this other stuff all on their own. With the help of the pastor, because you know he get paid off this book. As long as you look at it from his perspective, which is lost, then you're going to be digging in your pocket. So it's a simple but deep thing. And the government, you know, they want you to believe in any of the religions. It doesn't matter which one. In America, believe in any religion. They don't care. Just believe in one and get lost into the God Satan aspect of it, because in that they can control you because you don't have any understanding of things. And it's a deep thing you have to grasp. If you're a Christian, you might want to hit me up so you can get full understandings on your book, because y'all have to grasp. I was a Christian. So I don't see nobody that's a Christian that can mess with me on the knowledge of the book. I understand that book better than any nigga walking this earth. From the way I see it, you can go look at all my Christian Bible breakdowns. They're undeniable. I broke down the firmament, anything you can think of in the book. It's undeniable. I understand the book. I was a Christian once. So it's not like I'm just coming out the woodworks like, I was whatever you was, I was that. I was just deep in it. So I grasped, and then I had to move the fuck along. Same with Hebrew Israelites and all these different religions. I was a part of them. I just wasn't emotionally invested in y'all. I was there just for the knowledge. And it's a deep thing. You show up for the knowledge. And I get it. And I move the fuck along. And now I'm at the life. At the place where those who wrote these books that y'all lost in, I'm at the place of where they were. Where they're learning from the life, and then they write the books for y'all to grasp. And however lost you are is how you'll grasp. If you got